The screen fades in from black to a slow, quiet shot of a city at dawn. The streets are nearly empty, the noise of life not yet fully awake. A voice begins, calm but heavy with meaning, asking a question that lingers. What happens when one of Hollywood's strongest voices slowly fades into silence? For decades, one man stood at the center of action, charisma, and unforgettable performances: Bruce Willis. But at 86, the story is no longer about explosions, sharp dialogue, or heroic moments. It is about memory, identity, and the fragile nature of the human mind. To understand the weight of this story, you have to go back to where it all began. Bruce Willis was not born into fame. His early life was marked by challenges, including a childhood struggle with a stutter that made communication difficult. Ironically, it was acting that helped him find his voice. On stage, he discovered confidence, rhythm, and control, tools that would later define his presence on screen. By the 1980s, Willis had carved out a space for himself in Hollywood, first gaining attention through television before stepping into film. Then came the role that would define a generation. In Die Hard, Willis introduced the world to John McClane, a hero who wasn't perfect, wasn't invincible, but felt real. That role changed everything. It wasn't just a performance, it was a cultural shift. Action heroes became human, vulnerable, relatable. From there, his career expanded into something remarkable. Films like Pulp Fiction, The Sixth Sense, and Armageddon showcased his range, proving he was more than just an action star. He could be intense, emotional, mysterious. He became one of the most recognizable faces in the world, his voice alone enough to command attention. But the tragedy of Bruce Willis at 86 is not about a single moment. It is about a gradual, deeply human unraveling that began long before the world fully understood what was happening. In the early 2020s, reports began to surface that something was wrong. At first, it was subtle: changes in behavior, difficulty with lines, a sense that something was slipping, just out of reach. Then came the diagnosis that would change everything: aphasia, a condition that affects the ability to communicate, to understand or express language. For an actor, this is devastating. Words are not just tools, they are identity. Dialogue is not just memorized, it is lived, felt, delivered with precision. To lose that ability is to lose a part of yourself that the world has always known. As time passed, the diagnosis evolved into something even more serious: frontotemporal dementia. Unlike other forms of dementia, this condition often strikes earlier and affects personality, behavior, and language in profound ways. It doesn't just take memories, it reshapes who a person is. For Bruce Willis, this marked the beginning of a new and deeply personal battle. The man who once delivered sharp, unforgettable lines now faced a reality where communication itself became uncertain. The scripts stopped. The cameras turned away. The industry that once revolved around him moved forward, as it always does. But for Willis, time began to feel different: slower, heavier, more fragile. What makes this story truly tragic is not just the illness, but the contrast. The world remembers Bruce Willis as strong, confident, in control. A man who could walk barefoot across broken glass in a film and still come out victorious. But reality is not a script. There are no retakes, no guaranteed endings. Behind the scenes, his family became his world. Surrounded by loved ones, including his wife and children, Willis stepped into a life far removed from Hollywood. It became about care, presence, and moments. small, quiet moments that often go unnoticed by the outside world. There is something deeply powerful and deeply painful about watching someone who once seemed larger than life face something so profoundly human. The loss is not loud. It doesn't happen all at once. It comes in pieces. A forgotten word, a missed connection, a moment of confusion where clarity once lived. And yet, within that tragedy, there is also a different kind of strength. Bruce Willis's story at 86 is not just about decline. It is about resilience in a form we rarely talk about. The strength to keep going when the things that once defined you begin to fade. The strength of a family that stands beside you, not because of who you were, but because of who you are. It also forces a reflection on fame itself. For decades, Willis's life was public, his performances watched by millions. But this chapter is private, intimate, almost sacred. It reminds us that beyond the characters, beyond the films, there is a person. And that person deserves dignity, compassion, and understanding. For fans, the experience is complicated. Watching a beloved figure change in such a way is difficult. It challenges the image we hold on to. It forces us to confront something we often avoid, the reality that time spares no one. But perhaps there is also something meaningful in that realization. Because the legacy of Bruce Willis is not erased by this chapter. If anything, it becomes more human, more real. The films remain, the performances remain, the impact remains. What changes is how we see the man behind them. The camera slowly returns to that quiet city, now fully awake, filled with motion and sound. Life continues, as it always does. The voice returns one final time, softer now, reflective. Heroes don't always fall in dramatic ways. Sometimes their battles are invisible. Sometimes their greatest fight is simply holding on to who they are, even as parts of that identity begin to slip away. At 86, Bruce Willis is no longer the unstoppable figure the world once cheered for. But in many ways, his story has become something even more powerful. A reminder of humanity, vulnerability, and the quiet courage it takes to face the unknown. And maybe, just maybe, that is the most important story of all.